Kia ora, Markie here with a quick video. Looking particularly grizzled right now and scruffy because it's the end of the day and I've been doing some outdoorsy stuff and things like that. So see if you can, hopefully you can cope with that. Quite a serious video really. The coronavirus, okay, which everybody is getting very fearful and panicky about, as is the way with these things. Is a scary thing within it in itself, obviously. However, there is a whole new dimension to this, which is, I think, even more scary. So this is a political video, political with a small p, but worrying with a big W. So this is based on research as kind of made more well known by Jordan Peterson. Now, don't switch off. Some people love Jordan Peterson. Some people hate Jordan Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson, and I think he often is misquoted and misunderstood because he is often kind of viewed as being transphobic, whereas I don't think he is transphobic. He's making a kind of more subtle point. But when it comes to those kind of issues, this sort of subtlety, subtlety doesn't work really. The whole field is so polarized that it's very difficult for people to have any proper kind of discussion. People don't listen in that kind of field. So his point is more about freedom of speech, language, that kind of thing. So I think, you know, there's areas where I agree with him and areas where I don't agree with him. But Jordan Peterson is much more than freedom of speech. Canadian university protests around non-binary gender pronouns. Okay, Jordan Peterson is, you know, one of the best, most interesting thinkers of our time, and he has a lot to say about the link between psychology and politics. So it's some really fascinating stuff, but the most scary thing, as is, you know, related to what I want to talk about tonight, is he says he draws on research that says that where extreme right-wing governments have come to power, or dictators have come to power, there has nearly always been, at the same time, a threat of disease, as in an epidemic. And actually there's evidence to suggest that right-wing and extreme governments thrive when that is the case. And he goes on to say a whole lot more about this, so do kind of check him out. But one of the things he talks about is that you know, the you know, extreme xenophobic, racist kind of belief systems that go with that are not to do, as people popularly believe, with fear. They're actually to do with disgust. Okay, a fear of contamination, and he goes on to talk about. He says some really interesting things about this. So often, so people that, and you can actually psychologically profile people to work out what their politics are. It's interesting because we tend to think that it's more to do with your upbringing and your life experience and stuff like that, but actually psychologically profile people, and that will tell you what their politics are. So people that draw to the far right are often very kind of conscientious, driven people. They like things to be right, but they've got very little acceptance of anything different, and they have very clear boundaries between one thing and another, and they don't like grey areas. Okay, so people that have that kind of profile see gender, for example, as very binary. You know, you're either male or you're female, and there's nothing else. You know, and they have a very high disgust reflex, if you like, because there's this thing about contamination, there's this thing about sort of strong boundaries. You know, you're either one thing or another, not liking grey areas. So anything, any kind of fear of disease, particularly, is something that strikes them very strongly. And often in terms of other races, or other gender identities or different sexuality, often that will trigger their disgust mechanism, and they don't want to be contaminated by that. That's how they kind of see things, which is kind of, scary stuff, really. So what tends to happen is that when there is a lot of an epidemic, or the fear of an epidemic, it doesn't have to be a real epidemic, it just has to be the fear of an epidemic, that kind of triggers more strongly that disgust, that fear of contamination, that fear of other mechanism, and that kind of is like a shot in the arm for a budding, proto-fascist government. Okay, so obviously, this is an issue at the moment. The whole world, I think, is shifting to the right, but I'm thinking about America here particularly, not just America, but certainly America, and also when you have kind of epidemics and things like that, often there's more excuse to, declare states of emergency, to bring in more kind of extreme border controls, borders, to do with contamination, to do with boundaries, walls, all that kind of stuff. So, and fear, fear and disgust. So racism is, when this kind of thing goes on, racism is likely to increase. I mean, it's interesting because there's always, been these fears of epidemics, and then they've kind of subsided and kind of, turned into kind of fizzled out. Really, that they've not been non-existent, but they haven't been the kind of the apocalyptic threat that everyone thought. So, I can think of a few now, kind of, like SARS and, AIDS, first of all. And that was kind of big and scary. And then kind of, more recently, SARS and bird flu and swine flu, and all those kind of things, which kind of, I think, bird flu is still kind of around, isn't it? But we're not getting so scared by it so much. So yeah, coronavirus, big, strong reactions, very kind of dramatic news headlines. This could trigger a lot of really scary, dangerous stuff, particularly for somebody who is on the ropes and is looking for a distraction. So just something to be aware of, really. Now, I don't know how big a threat coronavirus is. I'm not suggesting that we ignore it, don't take it seriously. But what I'm also suggesting is be careful about buying into hysteria, particularly if it's manufactured hysteria, and just keep your eyes on the people in power who want to grab more power, because this is a critical point where that kind of process could get a whole lot worse. We thought it was pretty bad already, but it could get a whole lot worse, and it could get a whole lot worse with this coronavirus specifically. Okay, so check out Jordan Peterson for more information on that kind of thing. Also, check out his stuff on the Big 5 personality test, because that relates to this as well. And I've talked about that in some other videos. So, hope I haven't given you nightmares. All it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. So, every citizen has a part to play in making the world a better place. I'll leave you with that. Rangimarie.